Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Patafi. Once again, we are going to talk about Pakistan's political situation, particularly the lawmaking that is involved in making the particular laws regarding the Chief of Army Staff's tenure and also extension. That is very important because it seems that the government is moving to reach out to the opposition as well. On the other side, we have seen that there are certain rumblings of possibility of some kind of rapprochement with the opposition parties as well. We have seen that finally Asifa Bhutto Zardari has convinced her father to appeal for some kind of reprieve in coming days. This is one aspect. Then you have to look at the overall dynamics of the country's politics as well. While we are talking about lawmaking, remember the consensus between the government and the opposition is very important. Treasury benches, opposition benches. But on the other side, it seems that one very easy task to actually nominate the members of Election Commission of Pakistan is something that has not been fixed so far. So if the opposition and government cannot come together on this small matter, how are they going to come together on something as important as lawmaking, especially given the record so far in this parliament? I've been pointing out in the past programs as well, and we have a guest who has been promising that we will see more of the solutions regarding lawmaking. But 1.5 years have passed in this country. We have been questioning in this program repeatedly, why is it that the parliament is porpoising, or perhaps it is dead in waters. We are going to talk about these matters and more. In order to help us understand these issues, we are joined by Mohammad Ibrahim Khan Sahab, MNA of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. I was referring to this guest. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Haris Khaliq Sahab, who is a writer, analyst, poet, whatnot, analyst, senior analyst also, but he is also Secretary General of Human Rights Commission of Pakistan. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Kamran Sahab, who is a senior journalist. We are going to talk to him as well. Kamran Yusuf, actually. When I was writing down, I ended up writing his last name as Khaliq. But Kamran Yusuf is a Vogue journalist, a talk show host, a columnist as well. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Ibrahim Khan Sahab, I have to start with you, and I have to ask you, how optimistic are you that you are going to actually complete this lawmaking within 6 months?
Actually, it's not a simple lawmaking. It's regarding making decision of a tenure plus the privileges and perks of that particular seat.
Okay.
And since it wasn't decided in the earlier laws, and things had to be, things were brought up by the Chief Justice of Pakistan, pointed out by him. With his guidance, I think this is an opportunity that I would rather call that we all need to avail,
right,
and make things and make the laws more clearer.
Right.
And
Actually,
I don't think we will have any issue with that, because the law is already there. All we need to do is further add few things to it.
Right.
So it will be some sort of bills, amendment bills that will be needed.
Is
and
it
that
going
can
to be Act of Parliament?
Yes. And
as ordered by the court?
Yes.
Act of Parliament, right?
Act of Parliament.
So the problem now is that so far you haven't been able to pass many laws, right? So how are you going to accomplish this now?
I tell you what, we passed a lot of, passing a law and passing a bill are two different things.
Right.
Passing a bill needs a simple majority, which we have.
Okay. Not in the upper house. Senate.
Well, you have seen the results of the upper house also. So, let's not make it into, trying to dig out a monster out of nothing.
No, but are you
we
talking about, are you
and,
referring
I
to the
think
chairman Senate's
Yes.
no confidence?
Of
That was
course.
not lawmaking, sir.
That was not lawmaking. But I'm telling you very clearly that we will not have any issue, because its issue is directly related to the national security.
Right. Right.
And it's a issue for all of us, and it's a matter of issue related to the existence of Pakistan with the security of Pakistan.
Right.
So I don't think anybody will try to play with that, and things will be moved in the right direction, set in the
Let
right
us
direction.
hope that happens. Let me ask Haris Khaliq Saab, because he keeps a very close eye on these matters. Are you also optimistic that this will happen very soon?
You see, it is very difficult, Farrukh, to speculate in Pakistan. I mean, there are certain things which are very predictable. When it comes to the questions of national security, I mean, things become more predictable than otherwise. But in this particular case, I mean, the mood that you see among the opposition parties, it is not going to be a cakewalk.
Okay.
And I think no amendment or no law, the way the Treasury benches got 11 pieces of legislation bulldozed during one day, including 9 ordinances, is something that Parliament shouldn't be functioning like. And I think it is important that
It was
the
technically
government,
not Parliament's job. It was basically the presidency doing the job, right?
but you see, when you need a constitutional amendment, I'm not a law expert, so I don't know whether you would need a constitutional amendment for sure, because there can be
the order,
the
short order says that it is
but you see,
Act of Parliament.
Yes, but an act of Parliament is not necessarily a constitutional amendment.
It is not.
So I don't know whether if a constitutional amendment is needed, then of course there will be give and take, like it happens in all democracies, where opposition pushes back and the Treasury tries to accommodate. Unfortunately, the way we have seen the previous 16 months of government, I think it is about time that the Treasury and the government, the incumbent government, becomes more accommodating. When I say more accommodating, I'm not suggesting you withdraw the cases that you have filed, but you have to be more accommodating in making the Parliament function. I mean, the Prime Minister has to reach out to the leader of the opposition, whether we like it or not.
But I want you to qualify this aspect, because in the past, whenever accommodation was mentioned, or the proshma was mentioned, the expectation was that somehow you are going to adjust to the moral or ethical demands of the other side. Now it seems that it is always about incarcerated leaders who are going through corruption charges. So how do you accommodate such an opposition?
I don't think so. I don't agree with this assertion, because if you look at the functioning of the standing committees and the 2 functional committees of privileges and human rights that you have in the Senate, and if you look at the way Parliament has functioned, it has nothing to do with incarcerated leaders. If Election Commission has to be, if the National Commission for Human Rights has to be reinstituted, and you keep, I mean, it is the Parliament is not responsible, but the standing committees and have been asking the ministry to do that, and it hasn't been responded. If you look at finalizing there are no members from Sindh and Balochistan for more than 6 months in the Election Commission of Pakistan. The incumbent chief election commissioner also retires in a few weeks.
And we are going to talk about that.
So I think this is the responsibility of the Parliament. I mean, and nobody is actually, I mean, this is an assumption that people are incarcerated, and those leaders who are incarcerated are not letting.
I don't want to agitate this point since I have to go to Kamran as well, but here's the point, that for quite some time the demand of protests were what? Produce our incarcerated leaders. Secondly, PSC leadership, right? For months and months, it was about that.
So there can be a production order, and then they can be sent back to prison.
Then
that's how parliaments work.
That restricts the scope of how you are accommodating the opposition. Let me bring in Kamran Yusuf Saab. Your takes, you cover for foreign policy and the national security as well. How optimistic you are that it is going to happen?
Again, I would agree with Mr. Haris Khaliq that it is difficult to predict at the moment that how things will evolve.
Why?
The reason is when this short order came by the Supreme Court of Pakistan, of course, Tehreek-e-Insaf government was really celebrating as some kind of a victory. But my sense is that the crisis is far from over.
Okay. What crisis?
I mean, the crisis of this extension issue is far from over.
Why is it a crisis?
The sense that I gathered
No,
from
hang
Pindi.
You're using certain terms, and you have to
Obviously,
qualify
I'm
them
using
as well.
certain terms, of course.
Why is it a crisis?
Is it a crisis? Because when a key position,
Okay.
the position of the army chief, given the kind of challenges that we are facing,
Yeah.
and you are not sure about his tenure.
6
There is
months are
certainly
given.
6 months, but what I'm telling you, that what I gather, of course, the government is saying that everything is fine now, and there will be act of parliament or a constitutional amendment, and opposition will certainly support it. But what I gather from Pindi, there is a certain element of uncertainty, because they want that Supreme Court, it would have been ideal that if Supreme Court would have given a black and white judgment, either they could have rejected the extension, or they could have said, okay, fine, that we.
But courts
this
don't
time
do this.
around, we accept that the executive has the prerogative to give extension for 3 years. For the future army chiefs,
Right.
they could, come up with legislation.
Okay.
Now, what happens is, because you don't know about what happens after 6 months.
Right, but we are living in the first month, A. And secondly, if the courts were starting to actually give you judgments in black and white and couldn't appreciate grace, then perhaps extension of army chief would have been your last concern. That would have been something else.
No, but
Because
the problem
courts
is,
actually
listen,
appreciate
no,
nuances.
when I say black and white,
Right.
let it be very clear. Let's call spade a spade. At the moment, there is no provision either in the Pakistani Army
For
Act,
72
neither
years.
in Article 243 of the Constitution,
Yeah.
that the army chief can be reappointed or his tenure can be extended.
His
So
tenure,
if Supreme
Kamran
Court
Sahab, his
strictly
tenure is not
goes by the
defined.
book,
His
goes by
tenure
the
is
book.
not defined.
No, his tenure is not defined, but
First tenure is not defined.
first tenure, but they say that there is a convention. There is a convention.
So
that
second
says
convention
that,
is also convention.
No, no,
Let
no,
me-
no. I mean,
We'll talk about this because it is very important and very interesting as well. Now the question right now is, which mode will you prefer? One is Act of Parliament. Of course, you can fix the issue of tenure or perhaps certain other aspects as well. But there are many issues which are right. Tenure of not only army chief, but a journal is also missing in the law. And secondly, when you are going to extend his term in office, then you have to adjust the limit of age as well, which is very important. Pay and pension is important as well. You have to give it retrospective cover these days as well. So how quickly are you going to move on this?
I think 6 months is fairly enough time.
Okay.
And I don't see that,
I would have taken
that's
this,
why initially
this
when I
statement on
said
face
that,
value,
I
sir.
take this judgment as an opportunity.
No, but
That there
but
were
it is-
certain shortcomings in that particular law of not defining the tenure,
Right.
the tenure limit, and also the perks and privileges, and now it
Naturally.
will
You
come
have to codify the law.
Yes.
Now the concern is that I would have actually taken this claim that you're going to do it in 6 months on face value. But the fact is that the matter was arisen at the 11th hour. You nominated the man quite a time ago.
Sure.
And then you didn't actually look into how you are going to actually extend the tenure.
We had the precedence of Mr. Zardari in his during
General
his-
Canning?
during General Canning's tenure. So the
Right.
precedence was there. That's why we didn't take it that.
But you are the visionaries, you are going to reform the constitution, you are going to reform the society and
There's-
politics as
there's-
well.
No, that's true. Now, since the honorable judge of the Supreme, the
Chief Justice of
Pakistan has instructed so we will adopt it and take it as an opportunity and make it right for good.
So are you going to make it an act of parliament or an amendment? Because an amendment can adjust too many things and it can ensure that the laws that you make have
In
some
my-
longevity.
In my perception or whatever the knowledge of the law I have,
Yeah.
I think it will be amendments.
Okay.
These will be the amendments and further adding to the prevailing law.
How are you going to
I mean,
reach out to the
constitutional
opposition?
amendments. Constitutional amendments.
Exactly. What else?
I tell you what,
Otherwise,
You
if you
saw-
talk about the,
when-
amending the Army Act, you can do it through
No,
executive order.
then that is 245,
Yeah.
which is the
243.
No, 243 is the
Yeah.
The
Yeah, yeah.
Const-
Okay.
Constitution, and 245 is that involves the Army Act also. In combination of the two, with the you have to consider things, and again I said that this is a matter of national interest.
Right.
whenever there has been a matter of national interest, you have seen there was no opposition. Everybody got together, like when there was a standoff position with India.
Yeah.
All the parties, from regardless of whichever side they were on, they were all together and they had their very clear
And
consensus.
how
I think it's the
this
same.
time
You're
it is
right.
not India. How are you going to convince the opposition that they are going to work with you? Because you have been rebuffing them for 1 year
Sure.
and 4 or 5 months.
Right.
So all of a sudden you are going to reach out to them and they are going to say everything is hunky dory.
No, it's you see, you work on the principles.
Right.
And if you're working on the principles and trying to set something for future,
Right.
I think that should not be, I mean, if somebody tries to play games in that, like trying to play with the national security
Right.
or issues of national importance, I think it will not be a fair game.
Okay.
And I don't think it will be, I mean, we have a simple majority here anyways, since I'm saying
But I think
there will be
Sheikh
amendments.
Rashid has given a very interesting statement on this,
Right.
that who will talk to the opposition. He said that those who are supposed to talk to the opposition will surely talk to the opposition.
Okay,
So
that is-
probably it won't be the government that is going to
Okay,
talk to the
is he
opposition.
implying that?
So there will be a lot of...
No, hang on. Is he implying that because the government has
You know that
constituted
when
a
Sheikh Rashid-
3-member committee
I know, but you know that
headed by the defense minister and
but
then there
when
is the
Sheikh
foreign
Rashid was
minister.
making that statement, he was not that naive. You know that what he was talking about. He knows that how
No,
opposition could be
this-
convinced. So
this is a claim that you can make on your own expense. I'm not going to actually
No, but
rebut or
everybody
approve.
knows that where Sheikh
Yeah.
Rashid is coming from. So that's what I'm saying. You know.
He is coming from Pindi, but he lives in Pindi.
Sheikh Rashid comes from Pindi, and
He
I
lives
think
there.
he can better explain what he means by
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
My-
I
don't
totally
think
get that.
I mean, in
I
ideal circumstances,
don't-
you are right that the government and the opposition will negotiate.
He's not-
But
he's
issue
not
is such
running
as
the
this.
government.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there will be a lot of other negotiations.
Kamran sir,
There will
here's
be a
the
lot
thing,
of give
and I
and
have
takes.
to- I have to
PTI is running the government, and PTI will make the decisions how to handle
Yeah, but
things.
you're,
Not Sheikh Rashid Sahib. He's our ally. We respect that, but we are the decision makers, and we call the shots.
On the face of it, I agree with
Okay.
you, but of course the dynamics
Yeah,
of
on the face
Pakistani
of it, I have
politics-
to go to Haris Khaliq Sahab, who is waiting for his turn very patiently.
No, I'm fine. I mean,
yeah,
I
know you are
enjoy the
enjoying- you are
I'm enjoying the conversation.
The
Yeah.
ping pong match. But the question right now is, when you are talking about the mood in the government, right? It seems that finally it has realized that it has to be more conciliatory. But when you talk about opposition, I don't know whether it is how the media presents it, or this is what the opposition is demanding. But I haven't seen substantive demands coming from the opposition regarding certain concessions, which are policy matters, not personal matters of the leaders.
For instance, I mean, which substantive demands about their leaders have been made in public?
Substantive is different from personal, right?
Yeah, which personal demands are made for their leaders
They
in public?
keep on saying that they are being persecuted.
Well, you see, there are two things.
Right.
One is that, respectfully to Ibrahim Saab, PTI is not fully in charge. Because if PTI had been fully in charge, then you wouldn't have Shabbar Zaidi as chairman FBR and Baqir Raza as president of Governor State Bank and Hafiz Sheikh as the finance minister.
Why not?
So no, you don't. And the because they you see, I mean, we know how it is being run. And I think nobody is that
They're
naive.
fixing your economy. They're technocrats.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we see how it is being fixed, but I mean, and we'll further see how it is being fixed. But the question about the opposition being persecuted gains importance because you do not see the same treatment being meted out to people who have been allies of the current government and who have been a part of the current dispensation.
I get that.
Because you see, most of the people who are a part of PTI
Right. Came from other parties?
have come from 4 different parties or 5 different parties.
So many parties,
And
right?
there are so many others whose cases are being, lying with NAB. And the chairman NAB the chairman NAB even said that, if I start arm twisting the incumbent government, it will fall.
Yeah.
So you see, it's so this.
I don't know whether
So
it was
it
in
is
so
about
many
it is
words.
about It is
But
about,
that must
well,
be
he
implicated.
said it in as many words 6 months ago. If you actually go back and
I
if
get
the
it.
process of justice is not selective,
No, Haris
then
sir-
I don't think nobody will be
Haris sir-
criticizing this desire to curb corruption and
Haris
this
sahab-
desire to
Haris sahab,
fix.
hang on. I don't think that you're appreciating where it is coming from, this concern, right? Everybody wants, that nobody has monopoly of ideas in a society, right? That you have more than one political option. But in order to do that, political parties have to one day come out of the victimhood syndrome and start pitching their ideas as well. And what I'm saying is, in the economy of things, the opposition party seems to be talking about themselves rather than the plight of the people.
Well, I mean, that's your view.
This is a concern.
That's your view, because if you look at the newspapers of the last 1 year
Yeah.
and you read all what different political leaders have said, and I don't want to be partisan, so I'm not going to name anybody. I think people have been raising issues, and people from within the government, people who have their constituencies. I remember Nur Alam Saab making a statement. I remember so many others from Sindh making a statement who have
Right.
been elected from PTI from Karachi, for instance, 14 out of 21, which is, so it is the largest party in Karachi. So people have been making these statements. Parliamentarians, as representatives of their constituencies, have been making these statements, whether they are treasury or opposition. But you see, the thing is that the media, particularly the television and electronic media, focuses on things which are sensational
Right.
and which sell.
And opposition doesn't know how to handle sensational?
Well, I think neither the government nor the opposition actually have an understanding of how they should be presenting their case.
Right. And that is quite intriguing.
I mean, because the political parties in Pakistan are still in sort of an
So
evolving...
you are saying that we are not looking at a possibility of one-party system. You are talking about a possibility where we might have zero-party system.
Well, if you
Are
allow
you saying
political
that?
parties to function, because let me remind you that, it was only General Kiani whose extension was done under a democratic government, or an elected government rather, because it's a quasi-democracy anyway.
No,
But
Pervez
the-
Musharraf was given an extension by Nawaz Sharif, and then of course there was a military coup. But that was a different story.
Well, yes, but that's the whole...
But that was a
the-
civilian government that
Yeah.
gave an
And
extension.
Pervez
No, he
Musharraf was
not-
actually
no, no, he
also
was
Chairman
not-
Joint Chief.
No,
He
he
was-
was not given
He
an
was
extension.
made Chairman Joint
Yes,
Chief.
he was given additional charge of the Chairman Joint Chief.
And
of Staff.
in
was not
fact,
given
in
extension.
that he was given an extension as well as Chairman Joint Chief of Staff Committee for 1 year. I remember that because
maybe-
we used to report
so,
on
so
that.
you see, the thing is that a full term extension. I think there are many.
So in a way, you are suggesting that giving extension is not a...
No,
not
I think it's
In
a.
Pakistan, look,
You see, but Farooq, let me.
I
allow
don't
me,
agree
allow me
with
to
this
finish
idea.
this point very
Yeah.
quickly. You see, when there is a martial rule or there is a dictatorship,
Yeah.
you blame an individual and the coterie of that individual.
Yeah.
But when there is a democratic government not functioning, whether PTI or PML or PPP, you start cursing democracy. I think that there is something that we need to go back to the 1973 constitution. Either you suspend or abrogate it. If you want to run this country as a federation under a constitution, then we shouldn't even be discussing whether
I totally get what you're saying, and I'm totally by it. My concern is that you are talking to me right now. I hope such a discussion was possible on the private channels as well in Urdu. But the question right now is how the common man on the street is perceiving it. They feel that their plight is not being highlighted, especially government is government. Every person thinks government is going to protect or defend itself. The opposition doesn't seem to be talking about the key issues. Fazlur Rahman Sahab, when he comes here and sits here, his first trigger is religion, the second is the elections. Hardly anything about the plight of common man till the time it doesn't reach Islamabad. That becomes a problem.
I think,
Please go ahead.
But I think here, when you are in the government, you have a greater responsibility. You earlier pointed out that the government is now showing more conciliatory approach
Right.
towards opposition.
Yeah.
I don't agree with you. If that was the case, they would not have reappointed Faisal Hasan Chauhan as Information Minister of
Did he
Punjab.
have an issue with the opposition?
Of course, that why he was brought, because he was, why he was removed earlier.
Yeah, because he made
And
a
today he
very
addressed
inane,
addressed a press conference.
He made
So
a
li-
remark about minorities.
not just about a certain individual, but otherwise.
But then he clarified
this
his
shows
position.
the approach of this government, and you were saying soon after the Supreme Court order, Prime Minister Imran Khan tweeted what he said. He said that this was the day of disappointment for mafias. He was actually referring to the opposition parties.
Why-
So if you were supposed to
Wait,
seek
hang
their
on, hang on.
cooperation,
No, hang on.
but at the same time you were accusing them.
I'm glad
they were
that you are not an
responsible.
opposition
Were
party.
the opposition responsible for drafting
Kamran
those
Yusuf,
faulty notifications?
Kamran Yusuf, I'm glad that you are not partisan and you are not a politician. Otherwise, had it come from the opposition, I would have said, guilty conscience.
No, because I believe
much,
that when you are in
right?
the government, you have a greater responsibility. Opposition
No,
has nothing to
why would you
opposition
think
doesn't have any
automatically
authority.
that those mafias that the Prime Minister was talking about was essentially the opposition? Why
No,
would you
because
say
everybody,
that?
you don't need, it's not a rocket science, it's not a rocket science. What does it mean? I mean, you just educate us.
And
What does he mean when he
there
says
are many
mafias?
mafias in this country.
you just
One
educate
was just fined
No, I
today
think
in
it was-
UK. One was fined just today in UK,
mean,
and
you
a
know-
person
You know
was
that I've
killed
been,
in
I've
his
been in this
colony
profession for
day
20
before
years. I've
yesterday.
been in
No
this
media has
profession-
reported.
I have been in this profession for 20 years. You know the context, what he was referring to. You know, when he said that certain, people or mafias wanted clash of institutions because they know that only then they would be able to, gain some benefit. So, everybody knows that what he was referring to. Prime Minister
Yeah.
Imran Khan has a very clear position
Let
on
me-
opposition
You
parties.
see,
Let me ask Ibrahim.
Yeah, sure.
I would rather like to, definitely like to respond to his and clarify the things here.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, he is right.
He was talking about opposition as the mafia.
Yes. I'm talking about the opposition as a
My
mafia
entire argument goes out
because
of the window.
Our problem, our issue as a nation is, regardless we are on the treasury benches or we are in the opposition, majority of us are trying to please our masters.
Who are the masters?
Masters means their leadership.
Okay.
Okay, they do not speak their own mind for the betterment of the country.
Right.
The real essence of democracy is to talk democracy for the people. I mean, democracy is by the people for the people.
Yeah.
Okay, but here democracy is by the people, but for certain individuals, certain families.
Earlier you said that we have to
Again,
focus on
as a
principles.
consequence-
And
as a
I was wondering about the spelling of principles because there are two principles. One is LES, yeah,
Okay.
and the other is PALS. But now that you are talking about by the people, I don't know whether you're talking about by coming from the people or
By coming
buying
from
the people.
No, coming from the people, but it also indirectly turned into buying the people also.
okay.
Okay, but you cannot buy the masses.
Right.
People do sincerely vote for you. People do sincerely vote for you and do sincerely want to see the change, want to see the betterment. But unfortunately, that's not what happened in the last 72 years.
Right. But
now we are trying to put things straight.
okay,
We are trying
regardless
to-
of what the Prime Minister meant, it is important whatever he was saying, and I understand that there is going to be an interpretation of that as what Kamran Yusuf Saab or you said. My question once again is that if you are going to talk about opposition in this fashion, right, how are you going to reach out to them
we
and how
have
are you going to convince them?
We need to literally distinguish between the
Corrupt ones and the
no,
neat ones?
No, corrupt one and the neat ones, and also like parties and the mafias.
Okay.
Mafias are, I mean, democratic parties are where there is a sense of democracy, like everyone is allowed to participate and
Name a party.
g-
Name a party.
I think we are. We openly talk when we
Do you
have
have
a
internal
parliamentary
elections
party.
now?
We will.
Okay. We'll talk about that later when we have
Okay.
those. Right.
Sure.
The humble summation is political parties in Pakistan have become what is called leader parties. They are actually galvanized by one single leader or one family of leaders, right? My question once again is that you can keep on pointing out who is good and who is bad. The point is that the parliament has all of them.
Sure.
And then you have to work with the parliament, right? So if you are going to actually
when the
try
Prime
to
Minister
isolate certain opposition walas, how are you going to work?
My point is when the Prime Minister referred to the mafias, he was referring to the two families only.
Okay.
he was not referring or blaming the whole parties.
Right.
Because
but-
MQM and PMLQ are a part of the coalition.
Yeah,
Because the Prime Minister used to call them mafias
but
just
they
a
have
few years
never
ago.
enjoyed that
so
kind
if you
of
join,
power.
If you join the incumbent coalition, you are neat.
So it happens everywhere in the world.
So what is the change?
That was the way
Where's the
People's
change
Party-
then?
that
So I
was
think
the-
we should continue. We should continue with the system
Okay.
and let it evolve, because there hasn't been any change, and there can't be a change until the system continues.
Yeah, but the problem is that when you are talking about democracy as a system,
change
and
is,
you are actually pitching it to the people, first of all, you have to remember who you are pitching it to, right? The people might be getting tired when you don't do things.
But people, the
And
thing
when
is that
opposition is also contributing to the problem, not solutions.
No, what I would say is he is saying there is no change. There is a big change.
Right.
2 years back,
economy melts
anybody,
down.
No, economy is
no,
getting
no,
better
no.
now.
Economy
Moody's
is getting
agree.
better.
I don't agree.
Moody's and-
Because that's
this is your
macroeconomic
personal
indicators, and we
perception.
can have a debate about that even
Yeah.
now.
Sure.
Yeah, socialism and
it's
capitalism
not
can
about
fight,
socialism.
but we
Can
have to
fight.
talk
It's-
about the
no,
indicators.
no, it's not
Please go
about
ahead.
socialism. It's,
Let him complete
sure,
his
sorry.
argument, then
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All I was saying is that whatever they're trying to do, they says there is no change. 2 years back, could anyone imagine that the Nawaz Sharif and family and Zardari and family would be put behind bars?
We
their
could,
They have
because
been behind
Panama
bars so
Papers
many
was
times
going
before.
on 2 years ago.
What?
Zardari spent 11 years in jail
No,
earlier.
hang on, forget about Zardari in the past. Panama Papers was going on during PMLN's own government. And he was actually, punished. When the verdict came, it was essentially their government.
It was their government. But nobody could imagine, particularly when Zardari mentioning how dare NAB can take such actions against
Saint
me.
and all.
Everything has
These
happened
were
in the
his-
past, Ibrahim Bhai.
Okay, no, I mean Zardari was behind bars for not performing tahajjud.
Don't
You know.
smile so much. I'm going to actually.
So things are changing, but they are gradually changing.
No, but the
and
but-
ultimately
no,
you will
he
see
may
the
be-
difference, and
but
you
the-
will
Let him complete.
Yeah, people will be held accountable.
Okay.
It has not been the norm.
No,
but
that is true.
Now,
My question is that you say that it is an elephant. I agree that there is an elephant and it is in the room. You said that it is going to fly, and then I tell you it hasn't flown so far. And you say that it will fly. And I
not-
need
I'm
some
not-
evidence.
I'm-
You are talking about lawmaking. Then you're talking about accountability. The problem is accountability is a concern, I understand, right? All of us are not beneficiaries of any corruption in the system, right? The question now is that while you're talking to them and talking about them, you have to actually find a solution.
sure.
And I don't understand how this elephant is going to take off.
Okay.
This is what I was saying. I'm going to come back to you. Haris Khaliq Sahab, one aspect is that I give you full marks for consistency when it comes to socialist, or people-centric economic measures are concerned, and I see your point. But humble summation is that macroeconomic situation is also very important, and it seems that finally government is fixing. Why is it that the media and the pundits and the intellectuals like your good self refuse to see that the government is putting in a lot of effort?
Well, you see, the thing is that for me, the way I look at things is whether the farmer is getting wealthier and richer and getting a decent wage or not. Whether if you have growth and your farmer is still suffering, then that growth perhaps helps in offsetting your debts and paying back your debts and fixing things. So all these macroeconomic indicators that are being fixed, you will have a current account deficit go if you're not importing. And if you're not, you don't make anything. So if you're not importing, then even your raw material, which is imported, so your car industry has gone down, your textile has gone down, your agricultural produce is going down.
Actually,
and
textile-
your current account deficit is increased.
Actually,
Textile
textile has
export
picked up.
has
Yes,
And export has picked up.
I'm glad that you corrected me. I'm glad that you corrected me. So let's see. Let's see. I would still be cynical because if you
Why
you
not be
cut down
skeptical rather than cynical?
No, I'm cynical because the way the government the economy is being run, sooner or later.
This is very interesting and intriguing.
No, if
actually.
you allow me
no,
to-
yeah,
the last
allow
point.
me to actually
Public sector
just
development
ask you
program.
another very important
Yeah,
thing that you reminded me. You and I and people like us, especially who are not actually at the top of the food chain, keep on talking about, the importance of change, right? That Pakistan should have more political parties. We keep on seeing the same aging leadership all over the party horizon. They are the leaders and they become prime ministers. Median age of Pakistanis is like 23, and the median age of Pakistani leaders is 63, I think, right? This is the state of affairs. But now, when a new party has come over, why is it that we keep on shirking it? Because it is the job of the system, not you and I.
No, I'm not shirking it. I'm just saying that it is the same kind of a party that we have seen in the past. I mean,
So where are
you see,
they-
we actually lack a major flaw is that we lack a sense of history, and we think that the world was born when I was born.
Right.
So if you go back, I mean, we have seen this happening so many times before. What Mr. Khan is doing now is what Mr. Nawaz Sharif was doing in 1990 and Mr. Bhutto was doing in 1970.
Why do we
So
not
I
have
think
more parties?
No, I'm
Major
not
parties?
in favor of more parties. I mean, my
Mr.
view
Khan is
of-
not doing what Mr. Bhutto was doing or what Mr. Nawaz Sharif
Well, of course,
has done
I'm
to
not
this
a-
country.
Yeah, but he's
let
not
me-
partisan.
You have to be an MNA, sir, so you allow me to.
No,
Yeah,
sir,
yeah, yeah.
Neither
do.
you
We
see,
are
the
all
thing
equal.
is,
We are
no,
all
of
equal
course, but
citizens
you are
of this
you are a
country.
member of a party, and I can fully understand and appreciate and respect that, and you've
No, sir.
gotten
But-
elected,
Okay,
so I
I'm
respect that
making a
also.
statement.
But
If
it
you are
does
going
not
to argue,
no,
I have to go
I'm
to
making a
Kamran.
statement out of my knowledge,
Equaling,
being a
Ibrahim
minor
sir,
student of
accord
history.
with
Ibrahim,
the,
sir, let him finish. Yeah, please.
It is what I see now, it's an amalgam of 6 or 7 old parties coming together, and half of the cabinet is Musharraf's cabinet, and the rest is from the old PPP governments or PMLN governments or PMLQ governments. So there's very little change if you're speaking about individuals. Now the other thing is that the way the affairs are being conducted. The way affairs are being conducted are similar to what was happening in the past. You join the government and no cases will be
Then you tell
pursued
me-
against you. You do not join the government.
No, but then
cases
you
will be
say,
pursued
let the
against you.
system work and it will evolve. If you are telling us that we keep on revolving around the same point, then we are not progressing, right?
No, we are progressing. We are progressing because 15 years ago, nobody would have challenged, nobody would have filed such a petition in the court, and nobody would have taken a decision to actually amend something which is considered
And no
not
one
to be
could
touched.
have imagined
So you see,
discussing this issue publicly.
Yeah.
So I think we
But
are evolving.
We used to actually
and I think
write
all our
and talk about
institutions,
it.
all
I
our
mean,
permanent institutions of the
you
state
just-
will eventually evolve because
Okay.
the system is evolving.
I'm just told that we are left with 3 minutes or 4, and because since Kamran is actually waiting for his turn, so I have to go to him. But there are two concerns that I have to look at. We used to talk about these matters in the past as well, especially during Pervez Musharraf's time, who had a remarkably thick skin, right? Now, he used to tolerate a lot till the time 2007. But now, give me something to work on, anything optimistic. You have said one thing already, that now that we are challenging all the aspects and the fact that the army chief's issue went to the Supreme Court and Supreme Court pointed out a lacuna in law. Now how in coming days do you see that we are going to progress further in building consensus?
I think we can only progress further if we, stop really relying on individuals.
Okay.
Instead, we should focus on institutions.
Right.
Because this issue of extension is very tricky because I haven't seen anything yet from the government because let's first government come up with a
some kind of
proposal,
law.
with a
Yeah.
proposal that what kind of changes that they want to bring.
Right.
Either they want, to add a provision or codify that any army chief can be given extension for 3 years, maybe 4 years, maybe 5 years.
Should
So this
the-
is a very tricky question.
Very quick question.
And other oppositions
No, very quick
certainly need their endorsement
Kamran
because
Yusuf?
today is PTI in the government, tomorrow maybe PMLN, next maybe...
I like passionate people, but here's a very quick question. Should the government first pitch the idea or the law to the people, or should it pitch to the opposition, parliamentarians?
I think when they present it before the parliament,
Yeah.
it is automatically before the public.
Not
they should present.
necessarily.
They should present it before the parliament, and parliament should discuss it. But I doubt that this issue will be discussed in the parliament openly because the sensitivities that are involved. So that's why I earlier pointed out that there will be a lot of backroom negotiations.
one
And
amazing
ultimately,
thing-
all of a sudden,
one-
you would
one
find
amazing
a
thing.
draft being presented before the parliament, and then all of a sudden you would
Okay,
find
let us hope in coming
the
days
stamp
we
of the
see
parliament.
some kind of rapprochement between the government and opposition, and the parliament starts moving
I
ahead.
hope that
And
this rapprochement is not confined only to the extension of the army chief. There are larger issues facing this country. I hope that they are also, because the government is now in the corner, and
Agreed.
that's why they need to reach out to the opposition. There are several other issues
I
where
agree
they
to
need
the
the
first
support
point.
of the opposition.
The aspirational part, the surgery is your job, and you have done it nicely. I have to conclude the program here. Kamran Yusuf, thank you very much for your time. Haris Khaliq Sahab, always a great pleasure having you in the show. Mohammad Ibrahim Khan Sahab, always great pleasure as well. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. But amazingly, our media keeps, whenever we talk about extension, our media keeps on referring to the matter as very sensitive matter. But amazingly, one source that has not actually reflected on that in that way is the army itself. It seems that somehow we media persons, our intellectuals, our pundits are more concerned about certain things, and the institution is ready to be part of the progress. When you look at the Honorable Supreme Court of Pakistan, the way the judgment was given, I'm grateful that the lacunas were unearthed as well. I wish it was unearthed by the Parliament, not by the court. But let us hope in coming days, if other institutions are working and really delivering on certain things, the Parliament also starts doing it, because Kamran Yusuf is right in the end when he says that there are bigger matters involved, and one of them is the health and future and progress of Parliament itself and parliamentary democracy. We are a parliamentary democracy. We have to prove it that the Parliament is also functional. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.